I've experienced in my lifetime 3 different types of customers. In my 15 years of retail management, and since I've started my own business, there's 3 types of customers that I've classified. You've got your high-end, upper-class customers, then you've got your middle-class customers, and then you have your low-ballers. So I say low-ballers versus a specific type of economic status because low-ballers could be middle-class economic status or high-end upper-class economic status. So it can fall in between either one of those, because low-baller is a state of mind. It's trying to get something for nothing, trying to be as cheap as possible. So it really doesn't have anything to do with your economic status. That can affect it to a certain extent based on your life experiences and how much money you do have, etc. Sometimes things change over time as well. People could be in one status and then change to another status and then have a different state of mindset. So that's just what I've experienced so far in my lifetime in business, and I want to make a goal of sticking with the middle class group for a couple of reasons. For one reason, they appreciate value because they aren't wealthy in a lot of cases, and they're at least living at their means or slightly below their means, and they're trying to stretch a buck as much as possible so that they can live their life to the fullest the way they want to. So they value their dollar and they don't want to waste their dollars because they don't have a ton of extra dollars to spare. So that means they're going to value your service and your work, and they're going to spend their valuable dollars on valuable work, valuable service that they're going to appreciate. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to still look for the cheapest price or the best bargain, the best price for the same value. They're not going to be foolish, and they can't necessarily afford the highest price value either. So they're still going to be bargain shoppers, and they're going to look for the best deal they can get, but they're still ultimately going to be looking for value, which means they're going to appreciate your services, whatever it may be, but it also doesn't mean that they're going to purchase all of your services that you offer, but they're going to purchase at least one or two, depending on how many services you're offering. You might just be starting off mowing. That might be the only thing you've been going with for many years, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have additional services that you started with or are adding on as you go, these customers will continue to take on additional services because they appreciate the value you've been giving them with whatever service you started with them for. But again, doesn't mean that they're going to be able to afford to or want to take all of your services. They might want to trim their own hedges to save some money and stretch their valuable dollars further with other things. They may be active in the garden and they want to get out and do things and plant their own plants and put their own fresh mulch down once or twice a year, clean out their own weeds in their mulch beds. That's a lot of things that a lot of my customers like to do on their own. So it's less work for me, but at least they appreciate the other services that I give them. They still want you to maintain their lawn, cut their grass really nice and maintain it every week. They still might want you to aerate and seed every fall. They want you to clean the leaves up if they have any in the fall. They might still want you to treat their yard with whatever, pesticides or just fertilizing, weed control, so on and so forth. Or they might not want to do some of those things either. So there's a lot more options there's a lot of options with the middle class type customer, whereas when you go to the higher class, the higher end, upper class, they also have a lot of work. They usually have nicer houses, bigger yards, everything is well manicured and everything else, and they want that to be maintained, or they need it to be maintained because their HOA demands it, but they might not always be willing to pay. They might not want to pay for all of these services. They might just want you to do the basics, and they'll do the rest, or they don't care about the rest. And they're not always going to want to pay premium prices just because they make so much money. They don't want to be taken advantage of. They want their dollars to be stretched as well to do, for their fancy cars and their weekend getaways and business trips and spending time with their family, whatever it is that they do with their money. They don't necessarily want to give it all to lawn care or various other services that are out there. So just because they're wealthy and because they have the money doesn't mean they're going to spend the money, and doesn't mean they're going to even appreciate the value as much. They are more likely, actually, in my experience, to have the low baller mentality than the middle class group. The higher end customers are likely to look for the cheapest person, regardless of the value, and that typically is like the person that's just starting out, or the service that has just found a way to get by and still somehow be profitable by charging the lowest prices possible and potentially undercutting the competition, which I don't agree with, and I think that's not fair. Everyone should be around the same price, and I think your services, the quality of your services and the value that you're offering to your customers and your customer service level in general to your customers, and building a client base should be your strength, and that should be how you get more customers, and that's how you should eliminate your competition, not undercutting your competition by pricing them low. But it's really the lowballing customer mentality that creates lowballer service providers, because they go after those type of people. They can see you from a mile away. They can sense you. It's usually the new startups, or the people that are just doing this kind of on the side, part-time, whatever. They don't have necessarily the best equipment because they're just starting out, or they just never were able to afford to upgrade anything. And they don't even care anyway. The lowballers could care less what kind of equipment you have. They just want you to come in, hack their yard down, or just cut it decent for the lowest price. If they could get the neighborhood kid to cut it for $20 with their push mower, whether it takes them 3 hours or not, they could care less. If they didn't sharpen their blades and their stragglers all over the place, they don't really care. They might not even notice because they don't even look. They just know their yard is cut. The HOA is going to get off their case and not give them a hard time. They're not going to appreciate the value. So those are the customers that you want to stay away from, because they don't appreciate the value of your service, and they're going to want you to pay to charge them next to nothing. So you're not going to get what you're worth. So you're not going to be profitable. But that could be the high-end customers or the middle-class customers can both have the low-baller mentality, but in my experience, it's more of the higher end, and I didn't even talk about the lower-end customers that, really don't have much work to do in their yards to begin with. Maybe they're older, they're on a really tight budget, and they can't go out and mow their lawn anymore because they're just living off Social Security and maybe some retirement of some sort, so they need to find the cheapest service, to just mow their weeds, and that's it. Just mow and go. They don't care about their bushes or anything else. Half the stuff maybe died anyway over the years because they weren't able to afford to have it taken care of, and they're not physically capable of doing themselves. So there's those customers too, but that's really a smaller majority in my opinion. And customers that you might want to do as favors, like I think everyone has some of those customers, at least when you're starting out, because those are the easier customers to get, because you just say, okay, yeah, I'll cut your yard for whatever the price is bi-weekly, and to them that's probably one of the cheapest prices they may have heard, because you don't necessarily know any better because you just started out, and they're like, oh, that's great, I can afford that. Or they might even say, can you do it for this? This is all I can afford. And you might be desperate for work and or want to help out, give back, pay it forward, since you are the business owner and you can make those decisions and say, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. But you have to be careful of that, because if you get too caught up in that, then your schedule gets caught up with low profit customers or no profit customers, and you need to be able to balance everything out and really keep that to a minimum, especially if you're trying to grow and build up a crew and another crew and so on and so forth. So it all depends on you and what you want, but that's just my opinion. That's just what I'm trying to stick with. So back to ultimately the different categories of customers. Again, as I've explained, I really think the middle class customer is the best group, the best category of customer, because they're typically not the low baller mentality customer. They appreciate your value. They are going to pay you what you deserve to pay, to be paid, what you ask for, and pay for more than just mowing and going, so you actually will continue to get more money from them, which is more profitable than having a ton of mow and goes. If you can add on services to a yard while you're already there, now you're just increasing your profit immediately, because you don't have to pack up and drive off to the next mow and go. You're actually just doing more while you're there, so you're saving time and money, equals more profit. So those are the customers that you want to build on. Yes, high-end residential yards, definitely you can, you can build with that too. And I have more middle class with a few high-end and a few, super low-end. But I've gotten rid of all my low ballers because I can't deal with that mentality. I can't deal with those type of customers. I need to stay profitable and I need to grow my business. But the middle class customers are my type of customer. I will eventually build up towards, when I have crews, I can have a crew dedicated to the high-end residential yards and build up in that community, while I have another crew or two, or however many it takes to get my main customers, which is the middle class customers, my go-to ideal customer. And if you notice, I didn't mention anything about personality types or different size and types of yards or anything like that. I mentioned that in a previous video in a little more detail. Right now I'm just talking about a different level, which is the economic status and mindset of the type of customers that I've experienced that are out there, and what you might want to think about when you're trying to acquire new customers, or the customers you already have, and how you might want to categorize them and see what works best for you. In your area, you might not have a large range of these categories. You might only have high-end, you might only have middle class, you might only have the lower class where the finances are tight, older neighborhoods and communities, and they can only afford to pay whatever they can pay. And if the yards are small enough and you have the right equipment and you can still knock them out in a decent amount of time, then that's what you got to do, and that's all you can get. And you don't want to drive a half an hour away into another town where there's higher end neighborhoods and things like that. You want to just stay close to home and bang out all these yards that are smaller and also lower average revenue, but still somewhat profitable. Everyone has to do what they have to do in their local area, in their particular area. So that's just what, my opinions and what I've experienced so far, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's all about the mindset and what kind of customers do you want, and can you get, and what's going to be the most profitable, what's going to give you the most business, and go from there. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.